So I just want to introduce myself. I'm Tarsha Scovins, and I am the co-founder of an organization called Let's Go Outdoors. And I've actually added something new as well. I am program manager for a program that is called Urban Outdoor Initiatives. A lot between those two organizations, in a sense, Let's Go Outdoors and Urban Outdoor Initiatives, are happening in the Philadelphia area because our goal is to focus on urban communities. So one piece of what we're doing is working in low-income, high-poverty locations in the city of Philadelphia, and the other location that we're working in is really in pretty, I wouldn't say affluent, but we're working with those that already have the opportunity to engage in the outdoors where there might be a monetary cost to it. So therefore, I want to make sure, you probably already read our bios, you saw our information in the session that we're hosting today, but part of what we want to talk about is really starting the conversation, putting our current experience into a larger context. And part of the reason we think about diversity in regards to my personal experience, so I'm going to transition to the next slide, and hopefully our technology is working well for us, is one, because of my personal story. You know, I am a person of color, and that is one of the realms of diversity. And today we are focusing on the realm of pretty much that ethnic diversity in regards to race, but we know that diversity isn't only limited to that. So therefore, with us today, please keep that open perspective that we're focusing on it in regards to race, but we know that there's a lot more diversity in regards to socioeconomic status, age, gender, and things of that sort. But one of my personal things, how I got into this, is really looking at the diversity that exists in the outdoor experience. Because growing up, I was in an urban setting, concrete pretty much around me. It wasn't where we thought about the outdoors in the sense of, oh, we're gonna go on a nature hike. We're going to go and look at some of these species that exist. We're gonna go along the water. We didn't think of that. Our outdoor opportunities were going out on the city street, playing dodgeball, red light, green light, things that might not be unfamiliar to you, but again, that was where we connected and we went around to the playground. So the key thing that I was thinking, you know, as I got to college and started associating in certain circles and starting to meet other people was, oh, there's outdoor experiences that exist other than what I had known. And part of it now that I'm an adult, I have 2 little girls, and they're right here in this bottom picture here, but I want them to feel comfortable. I want them to feel empowered to get outdoors. But if they don't see a diversity outdoors, they may not be interested in it. So the organizations, Let's Go Outdoors, Urban Outdoor Initiatives, is really working on that. And the top picture is my sister because she's co-founder of Let's Go Outdoors, so we work on this together, and she has a little girl as well. So therefore, that's a little bit about why I feel that diversity is important, how I'm getting into this work, and where my knowledge base is.
And if I touch this, it does. Okay, so yeah, you are at a topic for diversity in the environmental field. And we're working at this in 2 ways because Tarsha's business is Let's Go Outdoors, and it's all about providing more opportunities for people of color to be in nature and to feel welcomed in nature. My business is to be doing environmental education. I work a lot with the Philadelphia Water Department. I have a contract. Most of what I do is with the Philadelphia Water Department, but I have a business called Sustainable Choices, and I work with 2 other schools. But our connection is because we have a contract. Tarsha actually has a piece of the contract that I have with the Philadelphia Water Department. So we've been working together since about last April, and this is one of the persons who was connected at that time with Let's Go Outdoors. And one of the things that I do is I use the Watershed model, and I take it to schools and I take it to public events, and Tarsha's now doing that with me. So that's part of our connection. I've been in the environmental field for a long time. I've been to these conferences time and time again, and it's pretty obvious when you're working in the environmental field in Pennsylvania that there's not a lot of people of color who are involved. There's exceptions because the senior corps from Germantown has been here almost as soon as I've been here, Fred. I'm really excited to have that connection. And when we talk about when I mention some diverse organizations later on, you know, that certainly is one of the effective places where we've got some diversity going on in the environmental field. Okay, so I think the next one's yours. No.
We just want to talk about what we're hoping to impart on you today. So therefore, what are we hoping to give you? 45 minutes isn't a very long time, but we're hoping in that 45 minutes, we're gonna start a conversation. We're gonna share, to start this conversation, we're gonna share some of the demographics that exist in regards to what are we talking about when we say diversity, especially in regards to race. Like I said, that's what we're talking about today. We're gonna share some stories that are really examples and illustrations of what we're doing and how we're doing it and what we feel is going to help push you forward if you're thinking about the next steps into the larger context. And then resources for change, because again, Dottie and I were able to start this partnership, but how can you start partnerships with other organizations? How can you bring in more diversity? These are ideas and sample, again, resources that we're gonna share with you today, okay? All right, so we're gonna start with the demographics, right? Because that's always the important piece. We have to have facts, data that shares in you. And one of the key things that I like to share is when we're talking about demographics is, one, just looking in the room, we see that it's pretty diverse, which I'm excited, and I appreciate that you're all here and you're all interested in thinking about diversity, or maybe you already have something that's going on. But it isn't an easy conversation to start, but sometimes starting the conversation starts with, let's just look at the data. Let's look at who's in the room. And today, was a very good example. It's not as diverse as we hope to see it one day, or I should say as I hope to see it one day, okay?
As we do, yeah.
Yes, exactly. So good. So that's why I always commend everybody who comes to this type of session, because it's not an easy conversation to have. And Dottie is going to pinpoint some of those things as we start to move forward in the conversation. So let's start with some data. All right, so we start with the larger picture, people in the United States, all right? So this is according to census data. 2013, 39% of the world, or I should say the United States, were considered people of color, because we know that people of color does not only include Black people or African Americans. It includes Asians, it includes Hispanics, and actually we really want to start thinking about Hispanics, because Hispanics are actually becoming a very large population of the United States. So think about that as well. And then we think about other nationalities. So keep that in mind. Though 12% is African American. By 2060, they're saying that 57% of the United States is going to be people of color, all right? And 15% of that will be African American. And so now, African Americans in Pennsylvania, okay? So 2010, 1,507,965, 11.9% of the population in general. And then Pennsylvania ranks number 3 in regards to the number of African Americans or people of color in regards to that. Let me make sure I have that correct, because I did write it down. Yes, okay? And so one of the key things I want to say is when we think about people of color, and as you think about diversity, and maybe it doesn't look the same where you're at, because again, it's not always racial. And we think about it was funny that Maya in her presentation this morning, she mentioned, oh, in Montana's doing some wonderful things in regards to the environment. Also, Montana, if you want to take a guess, how many people of color in regards to African Americans do you think they have? What percentage of Montana?
1.
So it is between 0 and 1, I'll tell you that. It's 0.8%.
Yeah.
So therefore, really think about it as you think of diversity in your organizations. What does that mean? Because it's going to take some conversations in regards to what does that mean? We always think about it in terms of color sometimes, but again, it's not always about color. And that's what Di's going to pinpoint in a little bit of our presentation as well. All right. And so now we break it down to Philadelphia, because Philadelphia is where our organization operates. I know that we're not all from Philadelphia in this room, but I just want to make sure that you're aware we're giving this data because, again, we're connected to city communities, and Philadelphia is where we're operating. So therefore, this data was taken from a Pew survey and document. And over the 20 years, there's been a fall in Philadelphia for the number of people of Caucasians in general. So it's been a fall, 31.9%. So in 20 years, there's been a decline in the number of, if I will, white people that live in Philadelphia. So therefore, the community and the population has been shifting. So it really has to take some looking at, especially in regards to when we're thinking about the environment. What are organizations doing to think about that? How can we engage people of color? Because we know from a national scope, from information basically, which we're going to cover as well, that we need to start thinking about culturally, what does that mean? What does it mean in these communities to engage in the outdoors? So I wanted to go over a little bit of the demographics. All right, so I'm not sure, is anybody familiar with this report? This is the State of Diversity in Environmental Organizations published last year. Okay. It is very impactful. It's a very lengthy document, but today it's about 200 pages. But I tell you, the information that I'm going to just touch upon, I'm going to highlight a couple of key things from this document. There's a download link, and it is on our resource list.
It is not. I'm just checking. I'm really sorry. We're going to have to do that again. So I was supposed to put it on there, and I didn't put it on there. I apologize.
No problem. But we are sending out the revised one, so if you definitely want the revised one, I mean, again, you can type this into your search engine and it'll pull up. Okay. Uh-oh.
There you go.
All right, so there was a study that was conducted, and this study of 3 types of environmental institutions. All right, and 191, as you can read, conservation and preservation organizations, 74 government environmental agencies, and 28 environmental grant-making foundations. So all of these organizations were surveyed were part of this study. All right, and part of this study, I want to highlight a key facts. The findings of interviews, because I did interview a couple of people, 21 environmental professionals, and the results. Okay, so the main points, yes, there has been an increase in the diversity, and again, we're thinking in regards to color perspective. Again, we know that there's a lot more to that, and this study did go into a lot more in regards to gender and in regards to age and things like that. We're just looking at the data because this was a lengthy document in regards to race. Okay, it has increased in these types of organizations, but it hasn't exceeded 16%. Okay. The other thing is, what it found is that in these types of organizations, that a number of those that are people of color are working in the lower ranks. Okay. Less than 12% are in leadership positions. Okay. Those are people of color, are rarely occupying the powerful positions such as president or board chair. And then 0 of the conservation and preservation organizations with budgets over $1 million had a person who was a minority in a sense, if you will. Okay? And as you start to think of those that are under $1 million, that are lower in budgets, the smaller it gets, the smaller in diversity. So it's something to think about just as you continue the work that you're doing. And plus, if you're trying to engage new populations to your organizations, if you don't have anyone that looks like the demographic you're trying to attract, that can be very difficult. Again, is it impossible? Of course not. And what are things that we can think about doing? Think about how the hiring goes on in your organization. Think about, has the conversation been started in your organization to define what diversity is and what does it look like for the long term? Have you done any type of strategic planning? When there is a position of promotion, how is that determined? You know? So therefore, think about it. Do you have internship programs that are recruiting from schools that maybe have a high population of minorities? Not saying that that means that they have to get the job. It's just a matter of where is the applicant pool coming from? Who in the organization can be groomed in those manners? Okay? Because it can be done. It's just a matter of saying, let's start to think about it. Let's start to sit down and have this conversation. It may not be the easiest thing to have, but we need to. And there's organizations. I'm part of the National Speakers Bureau, which is called Diverse Environmental Leaders. And there are members of that organization that actually focus on going into organizations and starting that diversity conversation. This is there's about 60 plus individuals that are part of it, all people of color who are all engaged nationally in this movement to have more interest and more. Oh, yeah.
What was the name of that?
It's called Diverse Environmental Leaders National Speakers Bureau. It is going to be on the resource sheet. Okay? All right. So therefore, and also just to another key point. So all of this to say, ethnic minorities are severely underrepresented in this whole environmental movement. Okay? And when we think about water, especially because it's one of the things that we need to live on, we really want to make sure we are engaging with other cultures, because again, we're not going to become involved. We can't continue to be involved the same way. So that's what my bottom line is. Science and engineering, yes, there is a number of people of color that are moving into that field, and that does have a connection to the environment, but it's still at limited numbers, but it is at higher numbers. Okay. All right. Okay. So one of the key things that we want to talk about, right? I don't know if anybody has ever seen this video, and there's a whole series of this whole Black folk don't type of thing. But in general, part of what our organization does, Let's Go Outdoors in a sense, is we really look at family engagement. Because again, when we talk about diversity, it's not just saying, and not that these things aren't good, because we made some awesome strides in regards to how we are engaging youth in the outdoors, how we're moving forward to create these touch points to create those experiences. One of the things that Let's Go Outdoors found that was lacking is that we're not educating the whole family. Because culturally, especially, and I can only talk for myself, but at the same time, culturally, I didn't come from a family that was okay with being outdoors in nature. It was like, that's scary, that's for white folk, that's not for us. We say, to ourselves in that manner. And again, I'm only talking about myself because we know that as we look at different regions of the United States, there are a lot of people of color getting outdoors, especially as we look at the southern states, especially as we look at some of the western states, because the outdoors is a little bit different when you come to Philadelphia or when you come to metropolitan areas. So that's why it might look differently in regards to diverse environments or diverse populations participating. But part of what we're looking to do is engage the entire family, because if we can educate the family at the same time, that means that when that child goes home, their family is more knowledgeable and is more welcoming of that type of discussion. It's not that whole resistance or that's not fun or that's not engaging. It's a learning experience that takes place at home. So one of our events that we did was a camp out. We do these multiple times per year, and it really takes place in Philadelphia. We use a green site, we use a school's yard, and we're getting ready to possibly launch in 2 other locations that we're hoping. I'm not going to mention them, but they're in the city of Philadelphia. They are green space, but on properties organizations have. So
The technology of this, you know how to get the...
now I'm going to go back to
So you got to do that one over there. Okay, good.
So this video is kind of going to offer a little bit of insight. When we think of the outdoors, a lot of people think of camping, and because it's like that first touch point, it feels good. We think about it as good. But this is going to depict it in a different type of way.
And it's intended to be humorous, so,
Okay to laugh.
it's fine to laugh. So.
You can never judge what people don't do, but you can speak about what you see sometimes.
Camping? I just don't see it.
You can't really generalize to say all black folk. Most of them, though, don't camp. Because out in the woods with the bugs and all that stuff.
For some reason, we don't like animals, we don't like wild things, we don't like things that we can't control.
We don't like campsites, we don't like tents.
I wouldn't, for the most part, do it unless I guess I had like some protection on me.
I was in the Boy Scouts and I didn't want to go camping. Camping is not in our blood.
My boyfriend is Caucasian, he's from London. So him and I decided to go to Lafitte in the springtime. It was like springtime Lafitte, the butterflies are all the animals, beautiful time, weather was nice. So we're walking, I'm just like, kind of pussyfooting along, and a snake went across the path. I about lost my whole mind. I mean, it was a black moment. And he's like, oh, look at the snake. He's trying to follow where the snake is going. I'm like, what's wrong with you? Why would you do that? Like, who would do that?
Something about the sound of like feet crackling on the twigs, and I don't know, you just feel like, I don't know, mass is coming after you. I don't know.
I'm sure that there are tons of black people who live in the country and can start a fire and use the bathroom outside.
When I go to Guyana, I was in Guyana last year, and I visit some of my family members, they have outhouses. And so I don't necessarily feel the need to camp. I feel like my parents gave up their country and came here and made a lot of sacrifices so that I don't necessarily need to go and hang out in the woods overnight.
I went camping once. It was for a TV show. I would not have gone if not for it being for a TV show. I did not like it. It was cold. The ground was hard to sleep on. It was hard to start a fire. The little trail mix crap that they had for us to eat was not it.
So there was this episode with Oprah camping. I don't know if you saw that. Okay, now I'm gonna start dinner. What shall we make? Smoke it elation.
It was sad. Now, part of me was because she's really wealthy and it just felt wrong to her, which I understand. Why would I be out in the woods in the dirt when I have a mansion?
Cheers. Cheers. Our first camping trip.
First camping trip. And
Last.
maybe our last. Yeah.
And last. It's just not something we do. It felt wrong to her. It felt wrong to me to watch it. It just felt wrong.
You know, I like creature comforts. I like the city. I like being able to go to, you know, the bodega and get some milk and go to the store and get a steak and, you know what I mean? Like,
They want a little more comfort in their life. They gotta have television to watch and just accessible to things of comfort. And when you're camping, you're roughing it. So they're not as inclined to want to rough it.
But some do. I like camping. I like the outdoors. I'm an outdoor person myself. I was in the military. I did a lot of camping.
Black folks, we go camping. It's not, we love it. We do it all the time. They just don't put it out in the open. They hide it.
So I camp. Now, granted, I only started camping very recently, and I started camping because I am married to an Eagle Scout. And so not only do my African-American husband and I camp, but we camp the way that Eagle Scouts camp, which means we carry everything on our back and we walk into woods and we build, well, James builds fires. As African-Americans doing that kind of camping in that part of the South, one of the things we also try to do is signal that we are friendly. Because many of the people that we're camping with or around or hiking near are not African American. In fact, often they're white Southerners, and we assume that they might have assumptions about us. So my husband, who is a civil rights lawyer, an African American civil rights lawyer, also has a camping cap. And on his camping cap is the Confederate flag. And he wears the Confederate flag camping cap as a way of kind of signaling, we're friendly, we're here, we're with you, in order to make camping safer for us in Mississippi.
it's interesting because there's something very sort of primal and sort of time machine-y about the sort of nostalgia or love of camping, right? And you want to sort of go back to a simpler time. Well, you know, for Black Americans, to go back in time anywhere in the previous 400 years is going to be hellish. Like, you don't want to go back any further. You want to go forward. You don't want to go back at any point.
Apocalypse might be coming and the world might come to an end, or on some 2012, like there's only a few people living type stuff. And these are the skills that Black people should have if we're going to make it to the next level of Earth or whatever. So it's something that I want to do. It just kind of freaks me out that I can't take a shower.
And when I see the disappointment on his face, then I say...
Anything pop out for you there? There's a couple things that popped out for me. What popped out for you? Anything pop out? Yeah.
These are all urbanites.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a Cuban American. I grew up near Jersey City. I hate camping.
Yeah.
But you know what? There are very few people who have my bird watching skills in the woods. So you don't have to go camping overnight. Just do day trips.
Yeah. Anything else pop out? Did you notice the difference from the beginning to the end? Yeah. So the beginning was saying Black folk don't camp. And in the end, what were they saying? I do.
One person.
One person does, another person does, another person does. So the point that I want to say about this is, what are the stories that we're telling? If we're telling the stories that no Black people camp, or no people in the urban are connected to, in the urban society are connected to the environment, that's the story that we're repeating, and it's going to go on and on and on. If we find the person who is doing it, and we're saying, hey, at this spot, this person is camping. At this spot, this person, hey, look, he's on a horse. I've never been on a horse. I mean, I have been on a horse. I can't be on a horse comfortably. You know, so find the stories that we can tell and pointedly pick those stories out as to what we want to be saying about things. Oh, right, I can do this. Okay, so I'm not an expert on this. I'm not coming to this topic as an expert. I'm coming to this topic as there's an elephant in the room and we need to talk about it. And so when I'm in places and we're talking about race, everybody has a sense of, I'm not racist, I'm ethical, I'm making the right choices and I'm moving forward with the right choices. And guess what? That's true. So this is not about racism in the sense of what my choices are. This is about what the system is like. And so what I'm experiencing in the environmental field is that when I go to conferences, and this room is not indicative of what I typically see in a conference. I was at the summit on the Delaware, and it was lily white. There was like one person of color, dark skin, who was in that whole conference of 250 people, and we weren't talking about it. Now, if your organization is serving people who don't have a lot of diversity in it, I'm not saying you should try to find somebody to change that, but we need to be talking about it in a way that's comfortable and safe for everybody, not just one person. So what I'm bringing to this is a couple different perspectives on how to ask the questions and how to open up the topic. And so one of them is from the perspective of environmental justice. So are you familiar with the environmental justice topic? Several of you are? Yeah. So typically what happens is that we take something from the environment. There's a harm that happens to the environment. There's a group of people who benefit from what we take, and there's often a group of people who get hurt because of what gets taken. And it tends to be unjust. It tends to be people who are in power who get the benefit of what we take from the environment. And it tends to be people who are not in power, which tends to be people of color or people who don't have a lot of money, who get the harm. And so we're trying to change that. Okay, so a different perspective, a different way of coming at this is from the perspective of diversity training and white privilege. And you know, we need to be talking about this. There's opportunity for learning about diversity, not just from the racial perspective, but from a lot of other perspectives too. And part of that is also white privilege, looking at that and asking what it is. Because there's a lot of information that's out there on white privilege, and if you're not familiar with it at all, I've got a couple of resources on the list for you to start with. What it basically means is just that if you are Caucasian and you're used to being around Caucasian people, you automatically have some cultural benefits. You don't have to look at television and worry about whether your skin is going to be on television. That's changing a little bit. You don't have to walk down the street and worry about if someone's going to be afraid of you because you're walking down the street. You know, we just automatically assume that we don't have to worry about those things. And that goes along with white privilege. And there's an article that we have on here called Unpacking the White Privilege Backpack. It's on there, it's on the resources. It's a place to start, and I encourage you to find out more information about that. There's a whole bunch of information on it, but it's not necessarily for the environmental field, but we can bring those things together. Another thing to think about is equal access to resources and power. This is not just about saying we want to have the children coming out to nature. This is about looking at the organization and the structure and saying, okay, so if I'm reaching children who are Latino and African American, is my staff Latino and African American too? If they're not, do I have a training program that catches the kids who are most interested, and I can help them become the junior counselors, and we've got a program for that, and then I can have the next layer of training the secondary junior counselors so that they are the ones who are moving towards being the educators for these kids? Is my organization, of course, this is if you are reaching a population that's diverse. Is my organization also diverse in terms of staff, in terms of board members? And if not, because most of us aren't, is there a program that is training up the people who have the interest that they can be moving in that direction? And we want these programs to be childhood to graduate school. We want to have a system that works so that one person of color is not the only one in the room when they're coming to a higher level of an institution of higher learning, okay? And I'm seeing changes. Okay, so what works? These are some places where it works. And you have a little piece of paper on your table because we're inviting you to tell us what works. We're inviting you to tell us what other organizations is working. Do you know of an organization that's working on this in a positive way? Or do you know of a website that's working on this in a positive way? We're giving you some resources. I will mention some, but we're just beginning in gathering this information. So these are anecdotal. I'm just picking my brain, and there's a whole bunch more that could be up there that I haven't had time to put up. So I'm seeing that in public parks and in public recreation, if you're in a rec center and the community is diverse, you're going to get all the kids there. It's working. Now let's see if you've got the staff, and let's see if you can get the program that's going towards college. I'm seeing schools. If you've got a program in the schools, you're getting all the population. Okay? And you have a captive audience of teachers. And hopefully the teachers are diverse, and then you can be doing environmental education with the teachers. I'm seeing, and there's national programs that are specifically working. Tarsha mentioned Diverse Environmental Leaders Speakers Bureau. This is something, it's just started in the last 2 years, is that right?
The last year, actually.
Last year, so.
It launched out of the Healthy Parks, well, national parks, and that's where it launched out of.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah, so we've got the link site there too, and it's diverse. It's people of color from all across the United States who are leaders in their community that are already having success, and they already have a story to tell you that is a leader who's a person of color. And you can access their what they're doing, and if they are available for speaking, and they're looking at that, and their purpose is to change the face of what we're seeing in the environmental field. Whoops. Also NOAA has a program that's reaching out in a particular way, and the EPA has an environmental justice listserv. So I wanted to tell you those things. Okay, so I'm an environmental education teacher. I'm working in Philadelphia, and I wanted to tell you of a couple of things that I see in my experience. So one of the places that I have the joy of teaching at is House at Pooh Corner in Germantown. I go back there to 1990 when I was there with my kids as the preschool teacher. I am there currently as the science teacher every other week, and I'm working with the teachers and with the children. And Mount Airy in Philadelphia is a very diverse population with lots and lots of all the multiple ethnicities there. It's not diverse in economic status. You have to be able to pay in order to do this preschool program, but you have Latina, Hispanic, white, they're all there. And the teaching population is diverse too. Tends to be more people of color, but there are people, Caucasians. I'm there every other week. So to the families, the children and the families are experiencing that we are in nature together. This is all of us. Doesn't matter what race we are, we're there. The children are growing up. I'm doing this. The children are experiencing releasing butterflies, gardening, getting the food, picking up I think she's got a tomato, she's got a green bean in her hand. And we walk to Clifton, which is a local place where they have huge trees, which is a great place to go to. And so it's working here. It looks seamless, but there's a lot of information that happened, a lot of training that happened in the background. Because when I was brought in a year ago, we were specifically saying we want to have more environmental education in the program. We want the teachers to know that the teachers were saying, I can't teach science. They were teaching science. They were teaching science because they were excellent preschool teachers, but they didn't have the language to say, this is science. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Thank you very much. Okay, so I was brought in to teach the teachers, to do some in-services, and to teach the kids. And over the course of years that I've been there 5 years, I'm seeing specific changes in the teachers' ability to teach the kids. So that if they didn't know things before and they weren't comfortable going out and picking the vegetables, they're comfortable doing that now. So House at Pooh Corner is one place where it's working. Also, Ellen, Fairmont Waterworks Interpretive Center is a place where things are really working out there too. So they have Project Flow. Ellen's actually talking about the urban watershed curriculum in the next hour, that she's going to be speaking about that. They have programs that go pre-K through grad school. They are targeting specific populations in order to increase the opportunities for high school population and to see what's happening to keep it moving upwards in terms of getting people to, in that ladder of experience, it's working, and there's opportunity for internships and opportunity for co-ops. And there's other places too. Center in the Park is certainly one of the places where in Germantown we've got the community involved in doing testing, and so there's a lot of diverse in connection there. And again, I invite you at this point to write some places that you know about, because I'm speaking to you from an experiential perspective, not from a perspective of I've done the research and these are the places. I say over there. Okay, so we're at, we're at discussion and question. I do want to point out that in the resource section resource that we have, if you have a smartphone, I'm going to invite you to take a picture of it rather than to take the paper with you. If you don't have a smartphone, we have about 12 of these pieces of paper that are on the table over there that you're welcome to have. I have, in terms of diversity training, there's a Paradigm Group Consultants that does diversity training. I have the White Privilege, Peggy McIntosh, White Privilege, Unpacking the Invisible Knapsack, as well as Noah's program is on here, and your two programs are on here.
And
Okay?
then, just to conclude, we just want to let you know that we know that diversity, I mean, it is definitely complex. It's not just one size fits all in a sense. So we hope that through what we've presented today, you have a good idea of kind of where we're at in a sense, which we presented through some of the demographics. And then just showing a little bit of kind of the context that it's in, you know, through the stories, through the illustrations, and then through our resources and some of the other stories that we told. Hopefully you have an idea of where you can go with that, putting that into a larger picture, because it does start small, but hopefully over the long term, by the time I guess my girls are 18, 19 years old, you know, they're only
10, 12.
They're only 2 and 3 right now, that, you know, there will be a lot more visually diversity in organizations, especially the environmental field, because we know that it's important to our world in a sense. So thank you. We can open it up to maybe
Questions and comments? Oh, I think we have like 8 minutes, so we have a few minutes time for questions and comments. Ellen?
Very brief. I want to applaud you both for bringing this conversation to the front and having some humor and honesty about it, because I think that's the first point of connection that we all don't say. I applaud you.
Right. And we are both resources as well. Don't be afraid to reach out to us. Again, my organization definitely focuses in urban populations, people of color populations, and we know that there's not a lot of those types of organizations. At least we haven't found any. If you have them, please write them down, because I would love to connect with them. But at the same time, you know, we are a resource here in the Philadelphia area that hopefully can be a connection for you, or an opportunity to start the conversation or something of that sort.
And I do a lot of networking. So if I don't know, if I can't answer the question, I'll try to connect you to somebody. Or if you're looking for something, I mean, I can try to say, well, this person's doing this, that person's doing that, and help you make connections across the fields.
Any other comments? We have one here and here. Yes.
I was just going to say so much about just environmental education in general is the idea that you need to create positive experiences, that if you're going to introduce them, make sure it's a positive one. And I just like the idea that you were saying about that you went camping in the schoolyard where they're already familiar, that it's not taking so much time. We think like, we need to get them in the woods. Well, we don't. We just need to get them outside first.
Thank you.
And to speak about that a little bit, in my experience working with the urban population where I'm really comfortable with the woods and the kids aren't, if you don't give them something to connect to that they're comfortable with first, when you take them to the woods, they're completely overwhelmed. So you have to be able to make sure that there's something that someone can connect to. If someone's never been in the woods, it's terrifying. And so yeah, it's got to be something that, you know, and what we're working on is right there in their yard, right there on their street, finding the tree, finding the bird, finding the insect, finding the spider. And then once they see something where they're comfortable with, then we're going to take them to a place that's more, yeah.
Yes.
I would also like to thank you for submitting your application for your presentation this morning, something I think is overdue sort of here at the Congress, so it's really great that you've taken the time to do this.
Okay.
I'm from the Schuylkill River Heritage area, and 2 years ago, we had an AmeriCorps Vista volunteer start with us who developed a program called Project SOLO. It stands for Schuylkill Outdoor Leadership Odyssey. And the goal is to get this program into one school in each of the 5 counties of southeastern Pennsylvania. I think currently we're in 2, Berks and Montgomery. And the program is basically designed to teach at-risk students at the 10th and 11th grade levels about careers in the environment, in environmental sciences and environmental education. So we have professionals, geologists, biologists, all those kinds of folks who we have a 10-week curriculum, and they come in and they educate students. And all part of the education is to getting students in the class outside. So students in Reading who have the river right there, right in the environment that they're very comfortable with, to go down and interact with it, so they get a chance to kayak and do some other things. So it's a really great program, and it's not rocket science. You know, it's getting kids to interact with the resources in a way that's positive. So.
Thank you. Please write that one down on our.
I did.
Thank you. Yes.
I would just like to piggyback the statement on congratulating both of you on bringing this subject as a presentation. I saw it in the workshops that are offered, and frankly, I did not know what to expect from this.
Okay.
And this is the first time since coming to the Congress that we've had any kind of subject like this. I hope it continues, and it's a lot of room for it, and you did an excellent job on presenting. Thank you.
It will continue.
Yes,
We
it will.
are dedicated to this. So
Yes,
do
it'll
not
continue.
think we're going anywhere.
Okay,
so
I'll be
we wanna
judging one way or
connect
the other.
with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
So where are we in time? Are we at the end? Okay,
Thank you
so thank
so
you very
much.
much.